Snakes are some of the most efficient killing machines evolution has ever built. A black mamba can move at over 12 miles an hour. A king cobra can deliver enough neurotoxin in one strike to drop an elephant within hours. And a pit viper can sense a temperature difference of a fraction of a degree from several feet away, letting it strike perfectly in total darkness. And yet, in the overwhelming majority of recorded encounters between snakes and humans, the snake is the one running away. No strike, no standoff, but a retreat. So why does the animal holding the most lethal weapon in the entire animal kingdom choose retreat almost every time against a creature it could kill in seconds? The short answer is, we are too big to eat. The long answer is where it gets strange, because being too big to eat only explains why you're not prey. It doesn't explain why snakes perceive you as a threat. This fear isn't new, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why the fear between you and this animal runs both directions, and why one of you has only recently started winning. Now, some of you are already thinking, it's simple. Maybe snakes are afraid of us because we are too big to fight. Fair objection? But size has almost nothing to do with it. A rattlesnake doesn't need strength to kill you, or even much time. It can close the distance, strike, and deliver a fatal dose in a fraction of a second, then be gone into the bush before you've finished registering pain. Weight, height, muscle, none of it matters against a weapon that only needs a split second of contact to work. If this were a contest of who's more dangerous, the snake wins easily, and it knows it. So it isn't fear of losing, it's something else. And the evidence starts with the one resource a snake has that it cannot afford to waste. Herpetologist Kylie Briggs spent years in Texas filming every wild encounter he had with western diamondback rattlesnakes. Every single one fled, not because they lacked the firepower to do otherwise. A diamondback can deliver enough venom in one strike to cause organ failure and death within hours if that bite goes untreated. Nothing about its physical ability to end the encounter is in question, which means when a fully armed predator chooses to run from something it could kill in seconds, strength was never the variable holding it back. It was the cost of using that strength. Venom isn't saliva. It's not something a snake keeps in surplus. It's built, drop by drop, inside a pair of specialized glands, and a single rattlesnake's entire supply at any given moment might amount to less than a gram. Once it's spent, the snake can't make more on demand. Refilling that gland can take days, sometimes longer, which is why, when you look at how snakes actually use it, they don't spend it freely. Studies estimate that somewhere between 20 and 50% of defensive rattlesnake bites are dry. Fangs make contact, no venom follows. Some species take it further. Australian brown snakes deliver dry bites in defensive encounters up to roughly 80% of the time. This isn't a failure to bite properly. Researchers have found that venom metering is a reflex a pit viper is born with, present from the moment it hatches, not a skill it has to learn. Now, here's where actual scientists get cautious, because the reason behind that restraint is still being argued. For decades, the assumption was simple. Venom is metabolically expensive to make, so snakes save it. But when researchers actually measured it in prairie rattlesnakes, replacing extracted venom raised their resting metabolism by just over 1%, barely a cost at all. A separate study on pit vipers found something closer to 11%, enough to matter. The scientists studying the same question, in the same family of snakes, haven't agreed on the price tag. What they do agree on is this. A snake that bites you defensively is choosing to hold something back. On an animal, it has no biological reason to consider food. That decision is real, even if the exact math behind it isn't settled. But knowing what a snake calculates in the moment is different from knowing why that calculation exists at all. There's a distinction between a habit and an instinct that runs so deep it shaped an entire visual system. And that's where this stops being a story about venom. Fossil evidence places early snakes among the first serious predators mammals ever faced, hunting our ancestors roughly 100 million years ago, tens of millions of years before eagles, wolves, or big cats existed to threaten anyone. Primatologist Lynn Isbell built an entire theory around what that pressure did to us. She calls it snake detection theory, and the claim is not small. She argues the reason primates, including humans, have forward-facing eyes, sharp color vision, and an oversized visual processing center in the brain is because for tens of millions of years, spotting a motionless camouflaged snake before it struck was the difference between reproducing and not. It's been tested. In lab conditions, human subjects pick out a snake hidden in visual noise faster and more accurately than they pick out a bird, a cat, or a fish shown under the same distortion. Not because we were taught to look harder, because something in us is already looking. So the fear you feel isn't really about the snake in front of you. It's 100 million years of ancestors who didn't see it in time, encoded into whatever part of your brain flinches first and thinks second. But sit with that for a second, because if snakes were hunting us for 100 million years, then the story you'd expect is the one where they're still winning. That's not what the evidence shows. Somewhere in the last few million years, the hunt reversed. Primates didn't just get better at spotting snakes, they started killing them, in groups, on site, as a matter of routine. And snakes had to answer back. Researchers studying cobras have found that the ability to spit venom, a purely defensive weapon aimed at the eyes rather than for hunting, evolved independently 3 separate times, each time coinciding with primates expanding into new territory. The snake didn't evolve spitting to catch prey. It evolved spitting because we showed up. And it didn't stop there. Monkeys living alongside cobras in Africa and Asia have measurably evolved resistance to the exact neurotoxins those cobras carry, a biochemical arms race running in both directions at once, each side adapting to the other's weapon in real time. So the fear isn't one-directional, and it never was. For 100 million years, snakes were the threat primates evolved eyes to survive. Then, in a blink by evolutionary standards, we became efficient enough, coordinated enough, willing enough, that the same pressure started running the other way. The animal you assume is dangerous has spent the last several million years quietly evolving to survive us. We didn't earn the snake's fear by being right about the danger. We earned it by winning a war neither species had finished evolving for. So the next time you're on a hike and see a snake in the bushes, know this: it's already more afraid of you than you are of it. There's no need to run and no need to make sudden moves. Just back away, slowly, and give it the same thing it's trying to give you, room to disappear. Do that, and you both walk away from the encounter exactly the way it was always supposed to end. Nobody hurt. And it's worth remembering what you're backing away from, because snakes are stranger and more useful than the fear usually leaves room for. A single timber rattlesnake, left alone in the woods, can eat enough rodents in a season to measurably cut the local tick population, and with it, the spread of Lyme disease. King snakes hunt other snakes, including rattlesnakes, and are immune to the very venom that would kill almost anything else. In some ecosystems, snakes are doing pest control work worth millions of dollars for free, and asking for nothing but to be left alone while they do it, which makes the last part of this hard to sit with. The same animal that survived the dinosaurs, survived 100 million years of primates learning to hunt it, is now losing to something smaller than any of that: habitat loss, roads, poaching. Some species are now considered at serious risk of disappearing entirely, not because they lost the ancient war, but because they never evolved a defense for the newest one. Organizations like Save the Snakes, the Orion Society, and the Amphibian and Reptile Conservation Trust work directly with communities in high-conflict regions, teaching coexistence instead of eradication. And it's the kind of work that actually moves the number, one relocated snake and one changed mind at a time.